again. I'm Dr. Hung Vu, and our show is America's Healthcare Crisis. The title of our show tonight is Stress Beyond the Home and the Workplace. Although the main sources of stress for us usually come directly from the home or the workplace, we occasionally have to deal with other stresses that came from other parts, like things that happen in the community, and beyond that, what happened in our country. And in the age of instant communication, occasionally we have to deal with events that come from faraway places. The examples are, say, the bombing in Oklahoma City, or the poison gas attack in Japan, or in a more remote distant past, the Gulf War. So tonight we'd like to explore the topic of the stresses that come from beyond the home and the workplace that indirectly heighten our anxiety level. And to help me with this task, I'd like to introduce two excellent speakers who will discuss that topic. And my first guest is Carol Fabric. Hi, Carol.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm delighted to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for coming again.
It's always so much fun to talk about the latest issue.
Okay. Carol is a Ph.D. He's a psychotherapist and has an office in Fremont.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And my second guest is Bruce Fabric. Hi, Bruce.
Hi, Young.
Bruce is an MD, a psychiatrist. So let's talk about some of the things that are of concern to you that are not directly related to your home or your work.
What things that are not directly related to my home or my work? Well, two issues come to mind.
Mm-hmm.
One is unresolved upsets that I might have that are just sort of hanging over from past relationships.
Mm-hmm.
That's not necessarily home. It might be some interaction that I had in the community,
Mm-hmm.
and wanting to really forgive those people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these are kind of broad issues. One is, I'd love to be able to resolve it somehow so I can feel good about them and I don't have to avoid people wherever I'm going.
What happened?
What happened? Oh, goodness. Well, I suppose one of the issues had to do with an ex-husband,
Mm-hmm.
you know. That upset was kind of hanging around for about 25 years,
Mm-hmm.
you know, not having him pay child support and
Mm-hmm.
having a lot of anger that built up over all that time. And
Mm-hmm.
what was I going to do with that? Did I have to live with that anger and resentment for all of that time?
Mm-hmm.
And I really think I just handled it. Finally, it went away about a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt really wonderful about letting it finally lift.
Mm-hmm.
So that's in the category of upsets that I wanted to let go of, and upsets with people. The other one, of course, has to do with, I think I was sharing with you before, about just being worried about kids, about children, and where we're going in the world in terms of how we handle our children, what they learn, how they're going to develop values and direction in their own lives, given that hardly anyone has any time for children these days.
Why does that upset you or stress you out?
Well, number one, I'm not a grandmother yet, and I'd like to be a grandmother, and I don't know if that I will be a grandmother. Number one, because I told my kids a long, long time ago, since I didn't get any child support initially, I told them both, I said, you know, you guys have to be aware that you're going to have to support yourselves. No man is going to take care of you. And so with that in mind, I think they really took it to heart, and neither one of them have kids. By the time I was their age, I had two already.
Yeah. So in other words, you have to live with certain rules, and whether you like it or not, right? I mean, like child support, you know, the laws governing
that would have helped a lot.
Uh-huh.
That would have helped a lot. I think I might have had more children if I had known that I would have that kind of support in the world.
Yeah. I mean, for me, you know, I had a very traumatic experience going through a divorce, and I understand that if I had my divorce in Louisiana, I'd be much better off than in California. You know what I mean? The law goes all the way for the female, whatever it is. So I mean, that's very. How about you, Bruce? Anything in your mind that upsets you that did not come directly from the home or the workplace?
Well, the kind of issues in my life that have been the most stressful have also been the greatest teachers. You know, and I think that's part of why an issue comes into our life. That it's not. If we look at it as that we're being bombarded by senseless actions of the outer world, then I would tend to feel more like a victim and feel, why is this happening to me? And I could feel that way. I have in my life. But but when I learned to go further with something, for example, once I had a partner, and I felt that the partner did some things that weren't fair, you know, and took advantage of me. And it left me, and this was a project, a business that I had a great dream of having perhaps my whole career in. So I left very angry for something like that. And you know, of course, after a while, consumed with this anger and rage, the great lesson was that no one was feeling bad. Maybe Carol was, she had to live with me, but no one was feeling bad from this anger or rage except me. I was terrible. So so what I had to do was learn then what can I do not to have this terrible feeling? So it forced me, maybe nothing else in the world would have done it, but it forced me to learn forgiveness. Because in learning forgiveness, I became free. I found myself again. I found my heart, my soul again. I was happy again. I was free. So then, and I was tested on this, because sometimes we think you know, I think I have forgiven or let go of something in my head, but the best test is if you actually see a person again. You know, if you see them and you still want to run to the other side of the street.
You know, that's very real, because, you know, for me, my whole life has been a chain of difficulties dealing with the fact that I can just be myself and breathe.
Yes.
And some people just hit my guts. I don't know why. You know, it must be something in them, because there's nothing to do with me or what I am. You know, and I have learned that sometimes, you know, the only thing I can do is to avoid them altogether, get out of their ways, you know, because, you know, even if I practice forgiveness, they will hate that too. You see what I mean? It's the extreme form of something that I don't understand, because I'm not that person, you know.
Yes,
but I have met that kind of people.
I think forgiveness doesn't mean that we have to be chums with those people. For example, someone might have done something, and you may know that you wouldn't want to trust them again. But to carry the hate is not beneficial. But for example, one way to look at it is like this. Sometimes it's some people's nature, you know, or an animal's nature. For example, it's the nature of a rattlesnake to bite you.
Yeah.
But still, you don't have to hate the rattlesnake. You can walk around it.
Yeah, and he'll bite you anyway.
Well,
way around.
And if you forgive him, he hates you more. You know what I mean? It's true.
Well, maybe you don't. Maybe in the walking around, you don't have to necessarily let them know that you forgave them. You can still have compassion in your own head. You can say, "This is where that person is in his life, and I'll let them be there. I'm not going to have to fight them or resist them."
You know, but one of the things I'm trying to say is that what is very disturbing for me is that some people can only identify with what they are like. In other words, they see something different. In other words, if they are very, you know, say bad, whatever that means, you know, and they see something good, that makes them even more upset. You know what I mean? You know, I mean, I guess to the extreme, I can say that, you know, they crucify Christ. You know?
Yes, but what did he say? You know, he said, forgive them, for they know not what they do.
Yeah.
The great beings who have walked among us have always demonstrated that no matter how people treat us, it's not an excuse for us to come down to their level. You know, I mean, we should do the right thing, but instead we still do have to love in order to be free. I don't mean love in terms of wanting or desiring something, attachment, but I mean the ancient scriptures of India also are filled with this. I mean, the Bhagavad Gita is a very ancient scripture, where Arjuna is in the battlefield, and he has his chariot driver is also his master, and Arjuna is filled with rage, but then at a certain point his rage leaves him. He can't, and he doesn't know how to fight without his rage. So he has to be a warrior. He has to still take on the enemy, but learn how to do it, but free of anger. And I think it's a good model for us in society, that there are fights that we have to fight. There are right things to do in society. But if we come from a place of terrible anger and rage, what good comes of it anyway? You know, what are we really modeling? You know, everything that we achieve through hate or destruction can be easily taken through the same
you
force.
have something you want to say?
Well, I was just wanting to know how it applied to you, Hung, when you felt so different. How did you? I mean, you came from Vietnam. You went to France to school. Then you came to the United States. How do you deal with it, with those feelings of being different? I mean, that's a huge stressor. We were talking about stress beyond work and home. How did you learn to live with it? Did you walk around? You couldn't. Here you are on television. You're not
Well,
walking
you know,
around.
I mean, for a long time, the only thing I could do is to flee, you know, to get away from the stressors that were sometimes very threatening, and that's the only thing I could do to survive. Okay, and it took me a very long time, you know, and I changed many environments to finally come here, and it's in a sense it's logical, and it's a long journey that I have been forced to take. But on the other hand, I reaped a great benefit from it, because I finally, when I overcome all those things, I become very free, because the journey, the harder the journey has been, in a sense, the stronger and the more knowledgeable I also have become, because of the effort I had to go through to overcome my adversities.
You didn't exactly back away from them. I mean, you had tremendous courage. You had to have that in order to move on.
I had to accept that, and I have come at this point of my life to realize that it's part of my karma. I was born with a certain disadvantage. So you know, I was born in Vietnam during a time of terrible civil war, and you know, I was born into that circumstance. It's just like a young kid who's born in Bosnia. There will be a comparable circumstances.
Yes.
And each one of us is born into a karma that we have to accept and make the best of it.
What do you mean by karma?
I am a Buddhist, so I think that what I have done in my previous lives had brought certain circumstances that were a disadvantage for me in this life, without anything I have done. I mean, there are a lot of things that I am not responsible for during this lifetime. But through patience and through studying and through a lot of just hard work, I have survived, and I have you know, paid back that bad karma, whatever you call it.
Did you have any good karma?
I think now I have it quite good. I mean, I have you know, overcome the bad part of my karmic consequences, not because of what I did in this life. Well, this is my own personal understanding of it, and I'm having quite a good time now.
I think I must have had some good karma and some bad karma. It seems like, you know, whatever we have in our life, it's both positive and negative. I think how incredibly grateful I am to have been born in America, to have been born a woman, to tell you the honest truth. I think I wouldn't choose to be a man in this lifetime. I know a lot of women who wouldn't choose that either. Sorry about that, guys. To be born a woman, to be in California. I'm so grateful to be in Fremont. Fremont is such a marvelous community. It has so many different diverse populations and people who are on the edge of all kinds of fields in science, you know. I just feel so incredibly grateful. So I feel like I have really good karma in that respect.
I think you do.
Yes,
I think I do.
And I have good karma also that she was born a woman.
But I also know that the negative karma too. I think those are my teachers. It's like whatever I have, you know, whatever negatives that I've had to come along with. Those are my. You mentioned the word teachers, but those are my teachers too.
Yes.
So those are the stressors too. The negative karma.
But you know, sometimes when people hear of karma, though, they feel like, well, then everything is fate or destiny, and then they say, well, I think we've talked about this before. Well, then, if everything's fate or destiny, then everything is happening the way it's meant to happen, and why do anything about anything?
No, you see, but there's the other teaching, and that is, you are the only person who can change your karma.
Yes.
You see, in other words, you can passively accept what it is and not do anything about it.
Yes.
But if you want to shorten your bad karma, you actively work at it. You see, and like Buddha,
yes,
he was capable of achieving nirvana in his lifetime. You see, and that was because he worked very hard at it.
Yes. In fact, one of the most popular scriptures in the world is called the Ramayana. And in the Ramayana, there's a sage, Vasishta, who talks to Rama, who's actually God, who's incarnated in a human form, but needs a teacher to understand what this world is all about. So, and the sage Vasishta tells Rama, he says that that fate is always secondary, that self-effort is preeminent. In other words, if it's when we wake up today, it's what we choose to do today. Do we choose to make today count, to be valuable, to treat ourselves well, to treat our family well, to treat other human beings that we come across well, to honor the divine, to honor the spiritual values of people, and do we live in harmony with this planet today? That what we do today is more important than anything that happened in the past.
Yeah, because the reason I would like to spend some time talking about this issue is that for me, I have learned that really the only thing that makes very clear sense to me is the notion of karmic consequences. In other words, the things that have been the great source of stress and pain for me is the sense that I am victim of something that is unjust. Usually we're stressed because we are mad at something that we feel is unjust.
Yes.
And for me, it is a very great comfort to think that it's nothing I have done in this lifetime, but I have done something bad before that have caused these karmic consequences. And what I'm doing from now on will influence what happened in my next life. That's for me, that is very valid, and it helps a lot.
Well, I love that idea too, because all of us who are involved in life, for instance, in the Bay Area, are creating the consequences. We will, for our children are going to reap the consequences of our behavior, our actions. All the environmentalists are certainly talking about that. That's why it's so important to keep that idea in mind, that karma means consequences of past actions, and so they can be positive or they can be negative. And I think that sometimes we're so intent on acquiring goods, acquiring whatever it is in the world, having lots of desires, our immediate desires met, that we don't think of the consequences. and we will reap them one way or
Right.
another, or at least our children will reap them.
Mhm.
Well,
I
sometimes
think it's very important to be aware of the consequences, because to me, in some way, forgiveness can be harmful. In that, if you think that you're forgiven and you have a slate clean and can have a fresh start, For example, one thing I absolutely hate, talking about practicality, is bankruptcy law.
Bankruptcy.
I mean, there's a guy who ripped me off, to the bones. And he went through the bankruptcy court, and he had a slate clean, and he started all over. He had
Yes.
no consequences of what he did,
Yes.
And to me, that's not good for him or for
In
anybody
this
else.
lifetime.
You see,
in this lifetime.
it comes from a good intention that gets to, it came from a good plan that gets distorted if someone approaches it with a bad intention.
Yeah.
For example, what used to happen in England is they threw people in debtor's prison, and then they couldn't get out of the debtor's prison unless they paid their debt. But there was no way to pay the debt because they were in prison, so they died there. So they decided, well, maybe something's more humane. So we have bankruptcy laws. Now, if they're used in the right way, that's fine. But you see, a person's karma, good or bad, as I understand it, comes from their intention. So if a person plots and uses the bankruptcy law in a very devious way, for example, buying their new car and this type of thing, and then declaring bankruptcy, well, it's not for us to make sure what happens to them is going to happen. But according to the doctrine of karma, karmic laws, it does unfold.
Yeah. And I also feel that human justice is very flawed, with the best of intentions, because of our limited knowledge and wisdom. Like a judge or whoever, can make the wrong decisions. So I personally have to resort to the higher than human kind of justice. For me, I feel that if I'm misjudged by my peers, but I still have my conscience intact, God will judge that, and that gives me the comfort. I know that throughout history, a lot of people have gone to go through that kind of exercise. Say like Socrates, or Galileo.
Certainly.
So
they had to be in touch with right action for themselves.
Yeah.
And it's almost like your body knows that. Even if your head doesn't always know it, your body knows when you're taking the right action. Isn't that true for you?
Yeah.
Well,
That's true.
and being at peace of
At
mind.
peace of
What you're
mind,
saying is, can you feel happy inside? Can you feel peaceful? Can you have the elegance and simplicity of life that just sitting down with a cup of tea or coffee or a glass of water, that you feel tremendous happiness and joy?
Yeah, right.
Or is the mind so unhappy that it has to always keep running, because if it sat still, it would feel so bad.
Yeah.
So then people get addicted, to shopping and gambling and sex and power and money.
Yeah, the reason I'm saying that is, for me anyway, it works beautifully in that I feel that some of the things that happen are not immediate. In other words, some people can have a terrible things that they do during their lifetime, say Stalin, and he had a state funeral. I mean, he had all his life has been. It doesn't seem fair, Or another guy like, say, Mao Zedong. He did a lot of bad things, but he was a hero, when he died. So, and it doesn't make any sense to me. But again, I come back to the reflection that is because, as human being, our judgment is flawed, and I'd like to have the scientific proof that that guy like that is living as a worm somewhere. That would give me great satisfaction. But of course, I mean, that is something that is
an interesting interview.
Metaphysical.
We relocate Stalin, and he's a worm, and he's going to be on the show tonight.
The choir would
a lot
love
of people would have said he was a worm when he was alive, though. Bad people are supposed to come back as mosquitoes sometimes.
Yeah.
When you go, then they become a martyr. So
It's
there is a direct, along with it, one can feel though I can feel some immediate consequence of karma though, you know, sometimes it's not just in the future or the past. For example, if I let myself get rageful, I feel terrible. I get the consequence immediately.
Yeah.
If I feel love and acceptance,
Me too.
right?
I understand that, you know, Stalin is paranoid. I mean,
What?
Stalin was paranoid, right? He had the paranoid personality, so it was not very fun for him.
No,
I
it wasn't.
imagine.
No, it wasn't fun. You see, it's like the more power a person has like that, who's so insecure and prejudiced and hateful, then the more they're afraid that someone's going to snatch it away from them.
Yeah.
So they're always afraid that someone's going to do something to them.
But the tragedy is that when a person like that has a lot of power, what he does affects so many lives. You know, like millions of people would suffer because of a tyrant like that. You know?
Yeah, but
So-
our job.
So how many people were not being true to themselves and would allow him to get away with it?
Well, I guess it's, I don't know, that is something to do with, you know, the karma of a nation, I guess. You know, when you expand the notion of karma, you know, certain people, like one of the things that was mentioned oftentimes among us Vietnamese was what our ancestors did to the tribal people before during history
Yes.
have come back to haunt us now, you know.
Yes.
So,
I mean, I have an understanding. I have a meditation master, Guru Mai, Chidvilasananda, and she, my understanding from her is that everything that's in my life is not in my life by accident.
yeah.
Everything is here because it's an unfolding of something that I did or didn't do before.
Sure.
You know, and it's an unfoldment also to help me to find ultimately to find the divine within myself.
Right.
So it's that path. We're all here on a path together.
Yeah, great. Okay, I think we're running out of time. I think that we must have done something right because we're talking about very heavy-duty issues and we're having fun, right? I mean, we're not stressed out.
This is our good karma.
Okay, so it has been fun talking about this, and I really enjoy having you here tonight. It seems like half an hour goes by very quickly. Like, you know, the saying is the time goes by quickly when we have fun. Right? So again, I'm Dr. Hung Vu. Our show is America's Healthcare Crisis. We have been talking about stress beyond the home and the workplace and how we deal with that. And I hope you have enjoyed this show. And so long. Thank you for watching. I'm Dr. Hung Vu. Good night.
Do you love someone? Have you ever cared? Do you miss someone? Have you ever shared? Do you need someone to always be there when you feel lonesome and deep in despair? Do you need someone to dry up your tears? Do you need someone to always be near? Do you have someone?